Everybody, hope you're doing well. I'm gonna wait a little bit extra today to let people connect because I had to switch up essentially the link to the location of today's video. I switched up at the last minute, so I am going to wait and make sure that everybody finds their way here. If you're watching on the replay, thank you. Welcome to another episode of Paris Live on the streets. And you may want to fast forward about 30 minutes, or 30 seconds rather, excuse me. Not 30 minutes, if you fast forward 30 minutes, it's not going to work at all. And I see a few of you here.
You like the building?
Sorry?
You like the building?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for us.
That's your building?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
thank
not-
you.
not
Oh,
mine,
but you
no.
live here?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm just showing the architecture to my friends,
Oh, yeah.
and then I'll leave. I'm going to show many buildings in this neighborhood. It's very beautiful. Thank you very much. I don't want to bother you. I'll leave very soon. Hey, Luciane, I can see you there, so that is nice to know that some people are connecting. One of the residents of this first building is standing right next to me, and so he was just in a friendly way asking me if I liked the building, and I said, yeah, don't worry, I'm just showing my friends and then I'll be out of your hair. Let me go ahead and pan up for those who are waiting around. Look at these balconies, they're beautiful. Zoom in a little bit. I know it's backlit, but... And then the, way up here to the top, you can see this is Art Nouveau that we're looking at here. And I'm gonna go ahead and start this episode because I don't want to bother the residents that are here. But we are back to the Belle Époque. Welcome to part 2 of the Belle Époque. We're in the 17th arrondissement. And I know some of you live viewers are a little bit slow to find me today. That's all right. We've had many glitches along the way. I had to use a different piece of software today, which means I won't be able to share any images with you, sadly. But don't worry, we've got plenty to look at today. And also, we're going to be maxed out at 720p for the resolution. So don't try to jack it up to 1080 for this episode. I'm afraid YouTube isn't allowing that during the pandemic for live streams. But anyway, we're getting started here with the Belle Époque. If you didn't catch the first part of this series, there's a link in the description that I'll leave for you. And this is the Belle Époque between 1871 and 1914. There was an explosion of creative architecture, and a lot of it happened here in the 17th. So why don't we just jump right in. Again, I don't want to bother these residents who seem to be loading their groceries into their house. It's an absolute buffet for the eyes here, a smorgasbord. And so that's what we're going to do today. Hey, Leslie T, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I'll remind my live viewers that the super chat function is available today. And that's a great way to support the cause. Look at this beauty here at number 11. We're on a street called the Rue Georges Berger, and we're very close to the section that we explored in the previous part 1. Here at number 12 too, there's some nice architecture. Oh yeah, I can read comments today, Danielle. I can see you there. Thank you. That's one reason I switched to the YouTube app today, which I usually don't use. But just to reiterate, it means I won't have the option to share images with you today, nor can I stream in 1080p, but that's all right, we'll make do. We've got so much to look at today that we don't even need images along the way. Let me show you this. Oh my goodness, that balcony, those corbels. How perfect is that? Absolute Parisian perfection. Hey, Kristen Parker, it's great to see you. So we're in the 17th. And this area, starting in the 1870s, that had just become part of Paris as the expansion, saw a lot of wealthy families building during the Belle Époque, that period of relative peace and prosperity. This we're looking at is the Consulate of Portugal. Rather unique there. And this is one of those tours where I got to keep my head on a swivel because there's stuff happening all around. Lois, on her OLED TV, the quality is spectacular. Glad to hear that. Here we've got number 2 bis. For anyone who's wondering, that bis is when you have a number 2, for example, in this case, and then a 2.5, essentially. This one is unique because for those of you who love the great the mosaics of Paris, this used to be a workshop for an Italian man by the name of Facchina. Facchina did the beautiful mosaics of the floors of the Galerie Vivienne. He did large parts of the Opéra Garnier. He did the Petit Palais, the Musée Carnavalet. Some of the finest mosaic work that you'll find from the 19th century in Paris was by this man Facchina, who had his workshop here in this building. So I would say about 98% of what I'm showing you today chronologically fits right into the period of the Belle Époque. And it's important to remember, for those of you who know a bit about the history of the architecture here, when Baron Haussmann was in charge, up until the mid-1800s, he had very strict rules on what architects were allowed to do in Paris. That's why all of the Haussmannian architecture looks so homogenized in a way and so similar. So this represents the Belle Époque, the period where all of a sudden Haussmann was gone, Napoleon the Emperor was gone, and architects could essentially let their flags fly and express themselves. I don't know if you can make it out. This man's got a lion's pelt on his head. Hey Valerie. Valerie says, love your videos. I love that you're here with us, Valerie. Glad that you're along for the ride. Literally, I got my bike today, again. These streets are particularly quiet, getting quieter every day, really, with the summer vacations unraveling for everybody. This is, if you recall, just like last episode, we're very close to the Parc Monceau, and that is one of the very famous remaining pavilions of an old barrier. And then the sprawling square. Quite a bit of space here. This happens to be where I finished up part 1 of this series last week. For those who are with me, you remember I showed you this beautiful perspective of these buildings. Pam Moore says, gorgeous skies. Yeah, we're lucky with the blue sky today. And it's nice to have a little bit of clouds. Actually, a very bright sunny day is not usually the best for these types of broadcasts. So I'm happy that it's not 100% sunny today. I want to zoom in on this building here because if you can make it out, there are some lovely little lion heads up there. The one on the right seems pretty worn, but on the left you can make out the head of a lion. And you take your pick, really. Any of these balconies are just a dynamite way to wake up and have your coffee in the morning. Because just to remind you, if we zoom out, anyone who has any one of these balconies, when they look out their window, they're getting exactly that view there of Parc Monceau. Barry's saying the same thing in the comments. Just imagine sitting there on the balcony overlooking the park. And all of this architecture, by the way, is just, even when it's subdued, it's beautifully ornate, you know what I mean? There are certainly the highlights, which I'll show you a bunch of today, but even the quote-unquote normal buildings in an arrondissement like the 17th is really spectacular. In this street here, too. The Rue de Falsbourg is where we finished our tour last week. And you'll notice, for those of you who haven't heard me say this before, very often in Parisian architecture, you'll see the fanciest balconies usually along this floor here, which for Americans, for example, 1, 2, 3, third floor, and then usually up top as well. You'll notice that that's the case for almost all of these buildings here. That's a leftover from Baron Haussmann, again, that was known as l'étage noble, or the noble floor. And it just so happened that in a time before elevators, this middle of each building happened to be the sweet spot where the wealthiest families would wish to live. They wouldn't want to live on the ground floor with all the stores and the hubbub and the folks making noise, but they also wouldn't want to live at the top of these buildings because all of the stairs. So usually right here in the sweet spot in the middle of the structure is the étage noble, or the noble floor, and that is where the wealthiest families were, hence the fanciest balconies. Now, why did we get the balconies on the top as well? That's also left over from Haussmann. He personally, he was a maniac with aesthetics, and Haussmann wanted to balance out each facade. So he felt like even though these upper floors tended to be for the servants and the maids and whatnot, he gave them a nice little wrought iron balcony to balance out the facade visually. However, you'll never see these ones up top as fancy and ornate and expensive as the noble floor. In this case, number 3. There's a sax player here who's playing some really nice music, and I would go share his music with you, but the problem is I don't have any cash at all, and I would feel very bad doing that and filming this guy and then not giving him a dime. So he's taking a break right now, but hopefully in the middle of your screen you can see him there in the pink shirt. While we're here, let me pan over, because even though they're doing some work, half of this door is missing. This is nice too. I like when iron, stone, and then the wood. I'll let the traffic pass us by here. We're on the Rue de Prony, P-R-O-N-Y. And we'll just give everybody a chance to go, and then we'll have the street to ourselves. Here's one. I think I can see the tiny date in the inscription. It says 1875. So, like I said, 95% of these buildings are all straight out of the Belle Époque. And we tend to, sometimes I make the mistake as well, of thinking of the Belle Époque as being synonymous with the Art Nouveau style, which is the very first building I showed you today. But it absolutely was not always the case, especially for architecture. Look at this cute little cottage across the way. Try to zoom out enough so you can see that. We've also got a sort of a balustrade at the base of each of these windows, and it's unique in that it's polychromatic. In this case, a red balustrade, which is, you can take my word for it, very rare to see those in red, in contrast to the very usual limestone. Nice little spot up there. And then while we're at it, the very next building has these styles of balcony that I Really like that bow out just a little bit at the bottom. Thank you, Denny Reynolds, for the support in the chat there. Let me take us to the other side of the street. This beauty is the Russian delegation to Unesco. I'm going to pretend I even know what that means. I just read it off of the plaque. But we've got quite a few embassies in the 17th. We've got consulates, and in this case, delegates. Whatever's going on up on that roof looks like it might be pretty fun. Oh, we're getting some sunlight too. Cap it off. This is an 1879 building, which again, Belle Époque. On the door. A couple addresses down, we've got the World Organization for Animal Health. That's what this one is. And here it's really worth pausing for these absolutely gorgeous consoles. You can make out the faces in the center of each set. Absolutely luscious. Ooh, the street just got busy. I'm going to take us over to that door because there's some nice ornamentation over that way. Got a C and a G. And then look at this beauty. Nice. That's in metal, some sort of, I will say pewter for lack of a better term. Vicky says, I love it when there's a little greenery mixed in on the fence. Yeah, well, this is for you, Vicky. Complete with the classic sirens. Back on the hog. The next door building is great too. 1879 on this one. I don't know if you can make it out, but the sax player is playing some Miles Davis right now. I want to show you one particular detail on this building. It's not that. So at each gutter that makes its way, at every metal gutter that makes its way up the building, there are these beautiful ornate protectors of sorts, just to deter anybody from climbing up the gutters, should they get the urge. Show you another one right here. Beautiful shadow of it too. Very nice. There's a pretty archway here. You can see it's just one after the last after the last. Just keeps coming at you, this architecture. Seems like there's a little, some little company tucked away back there. Look at this cute place on the corner. Concave shape. This is called the Rue de Chazelle. And there are a couple of buildings to show you, but also it's very historic in terms of the Statue of Liberty. I'll explain in a moment. First here on the right hand side, let me try to get as far away as I can. Look at this beauty. We've seen a lot of that brick pattern, haven't we? It's bringing this sort of a neo-Renaissance homage that we see quite a lot in the brickwork here. In fact, you see quite a bit of brick in the 17th, I think just because so many of these architects were going for the Renaissance feel. Here's another little cottage, for lack of a better word. As you can see, just a few floors tall. That's part of the charm of this area too. It still really never got built up that much. A lot of it's frozen in time from the 19th century when all this was built. This is a cute little balcony up here with about as much greenage as you can handle. Lovely. Randy says, I'll take that cottage. So here, this street, the Rue de Chazelle, a little bit further down, right over here, at number 25 of this street, used to be a foundry, and it's where the sculptor Bartholdi, who designed the Statue of Liberty, it's where his workshop was. He worked at the foundry and created the Statue of Liberty right down the street. And that meant that during that time, in the 1880s, for example, you would look down the street and see an enormous Statue of Liberty towering up over the other buildings here. And again, I can't share images with you, but there are some images of what that looked like, and there's a beautiful painting that was done around that time of the view. And so you would have seen this enormous, beautiful Statue of Liberty just jutting out of the skyline here with her torch held high and whatnot. That was a 67-meter statue, by the way, so it was enormous. There were 600 workers in this foundry just to bring that statue to life. And then it would be delivered to the US in the 1880s, 1885, as a gift, of course. Also, if we backtrack a few years, in 1873, following the Commune fighters tore down the column at Place Vendôme, and so when that had to be restored, they brought it to the same foundry down the street. So the Vendôme column, if you're familiar with it, was getting worked on down there as well. If you go to number 25 down the street, we won't today, but know that I believe it's some sort of hospital or a medical center now. And if you walk in the lobby, which you're allowed to do, you'll see they have a small scale model of the Statue of Liberty. So they are very much aware of the history of that. So one of the hidden treasures of the 17th. Thanks everybody for the support in the comments. I see you there. Traffic has picked up here. All the way in the distance, there's a modern church tower. That's the Church of Saint Odile from the 1930s. But today we're not going to go quite that far. We're going to turn down another street here and enjoy some more good stuff, particularly up here. We'll let this car pass the narrow street here. Now we're on the Rue Henri Rochefort, and there's another car. Just a quick detour to show you a few. I mean, as you can see, pretty much every street here has its own treasures. But this one right here, if we get on the far side of this sidewalk, you can see right away it's unique. Again, very much the faux neo-Renaissance style, which was clearly on the minds of a lot of architects. Beautiful gate in front. Wow, thank you so much, Mike Slater. Really, really appreciate that. And don't worry, I saw everybody who sent a super chat. I did see your names. I just can't at the moment scroll back and give you the legit shout out, but I did see it come in. I appreciate it. If we zoom in here, look at these. Look at that, the leaf motif. Oof. ×2. Thanks, Nancy Brisson. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm really feeling the love today. I appreciate it very much. That's almost like a yin-yang symbol type of motif there. And seems that there are people living in here, but also some businesses as well. Thanks, Lisa. What I love too about, look at this, there's a building next door that juts out, and instead of leaving the blank wall, they put this lovely little flourish up there to add a bit of visual interest. Thanks, Linda Rothrock. I appreciate it, everybody. This is really wonderful today. Thank you. I'm glad you're all enjoying this. Here we've got something lovely happening up there too. I mean, there's almost too much to dream about, you know what I mean? We dream about, oh, imagine that balcony, or oh, imagine that rooftop garden, oh, imagine that door that I could enter every day when I come home. There's almost too much to dream about. But that's a good problem to have. We're happy with that problem. Look at this window across the way. There's just something going on at every address here. Right next door, some of that. The doorway. Wow. Like I said, you gotta have your head on a swivel. Here's more brick. Thanks, Ricky Beltran. Appreciate it so much. Ricky says, formidable. That's a word I don't use often enough in French, but I should. Because it's quite a common word and a very good one. It gets the point across. Look at the windows if we do a bit of a close-up of those cross beams there. Isn't that just spectacular? I mean, isn't that just formidable? More brick here. This has a little touch, a little flash of tile work. Can you make that out there? And a little bit on this side too. It's a nice touch. And then, I don't know if I've shown it yet on screen, but two of these buildings have that unique crenellated sort of top of the facade. There and over this way. You see that? Same architect? I don't know, perhaps. Perhaps. So this was just a detour. We're going to turn back around. Because we haven't even gotten to the street yet that has the highest concentration of Belle Époque buildings. Thanks so much for the support today, everybody. That warms the old heart. Here, coming up on the right side, well, there's a couple of things I got to show you. Of course, right? That goes without saying. There's a couple of things I got to show you. That's always the case for everything. So can you make it out here? We've got some very delicate motifs here compared to what we've been looking at before. This is lovely. I would consider this swinging back into a bit of the Art Nouveau camp. With more sort of dainty and delicate floral or vegetal type motifs. And then if you can make out, there's a lovely little mosaic address plaque here. I love when that happens. While we're here, by the way, I can show you, this is signed by the architect. It says 1906, so yeah, we're right in the Art Nouveau period. Thank you, Peggy Baker. She says, holy moly, simply brilliant, Sir Corson. She's... That is in reference to the gargoyle that we're trying to save. By the way, if anybody can pop up a link to that for anybody who's not in our community and they want to know about saving one of the gargoyles of Notre Dame, who we have named Corson, or maybe we didn't name him, but that's his name, Corson, and we're all trying to donate to save or to contribute to the restoration. Look at this beautiful thing. Let me zoom in a little bit. Can you imagine? Speaking of another thing to dream about, that looks like an extremely well lit and well aerated bedroom, perhaps, or a studio. And I think it goes all the way through. Thank you, Ellen Cordini. She says, Corey, you've opened up my eyes to so much in Paris and given me a lot to explore in October. Merci. Oh, that's one of the best kind of compliments I can get. Thank you so much. So when I showed you those delicate Art Nouveau details just a second ago, it was on this building that I want to pull over so we can get a better view. It's pretty formidable. Sorry, I'm trying to get my bike here. Too many. So there's that side and this side. Yes, someone asked if we're back on the Rue Prony. Yes, it's true. The Rue de Prony, sorry. Don't forget the deux, the Rue de Prony. So I want to get closer, actually, with this one, now that we've gotten the overview. Park the bike. First of all, we saw the address plaque was in mosaics. Look at this, the street sign. Gorgeous, I love when that happens. It's rare, but I love when it does, when I come across those. And then here, on this side, it's number 30, and that again is done in what clearly seems to be original mosaics. There's a big pine cone theme. Can you see it there in the ironwork? And it's in the limestone as well. fact, if we look up at the upper floor, those are pine cones there. Ah, it's good for the soul, isn't it? And then, by the way, when you look this way, you've got, of course, the Parc Monceau. The good life. The Belle Époque, of course, translates into the beautiful era in English, and I think it was quite perfectly coined. Onward. This is probably not Belle Époque, but it's notable either way. Looks like it's more of a Art Deco style, but certainly worth a mention. And then look what's going on up here, just down the street from where we were. Beautiful rooftops. In fact, it looks like there's another secret garden up top there. Oh my goodness. So much to dream about. I know, we can't judge a book by its cover, but we can certainly spend our day looking at a bunch of covers. Something notable happened in this building that we're looking at right here, and we'll get back to that in 1 second. I like this one that's kind of rounded on the corner. So this same building on the corner, that if we wrap around, there's a very quiet little plaque hanging out here. Try to zoom in for you. In the 1890s, there was a poet by the name of Edmond Rostand, pardon. And he wrote Cyrano de Bergerac, that famous story here. It was originally a play. He wrote it as a play, and the play was premiered here in Paris. And then it has since been reimagined and converted into many things. Novels and movies. There was a Steve Martin movie in the 80s called Roxanne, which is a cute movie, and it's a modern adaptation of the Cyrano de Bergerac story. So that's wild. I mean, it's one thing you can just go around here and admire this neighborhood visually, but then when you start to think, oh yeah, there were actually legit artists who were writing things and painting things and sculpting things. And so there you go, Cyrano de Bergerac. Honestly, I didn't know that was originally written in Paris. So here we're on a street called the Rue Fortuny. And this street is perhaps the most ornate of any that we'll see today. And it's been described as an open-air museum just to walk down this street. And this is all Belle Époque period. But of course, a lot of architects drawing on the faux Renaissance or the neo-Renaissance style, which is certainly the case here. This is actually made to mimic the 15th century homes up in Normandy, the half-timber homes or the Tudor-style homes. And of course, there's no wood in this facade, but it's made to mimic the patterns of the maison à colombage, as they would call it in French. And you've got these beautiful little Renaissance era characters. Just formidable, really. That's what it is. Ah, y a pas de souci. This. Here at number 7, this was done by an architect called Dupuis, and it was, I think he did this one in 1913, which means it would have been right at the tail end of this boom of architecture, because of course the Belle Époque would get shut down by World War I in 1914, and you wouldn't see this type of architecture for a long time. And this architect here, Dupuis, also restored and reimagined the facade of one of the beautiful small theaters in the 9th arrondissement. It's called the Théâtre de l'Opéra Comique. And if you can ever make it there in the 9th arrondissement, it's in this quiet little tucked away square. And it's a beautiful, beautiful facade. So my point is that the guys who were building these apartment buildings in the 17th and throughout Paris were also at the same time designing facades of opera buildings and theaters and all kinds of beautiful stuff. So I guess it would only be natural that there would be so much beauty here embedded in everything they did. Here at number 9 of the Rue Fortuny, we've got a very eclectic group of styles. They're doing some work here in this one. But it's got a few highlights. One of them, of course, the beautiful bay windows there. Again, and I guess you could call it a sort of Renaissance style. And you can see some ceramics up there, I believe that is. This is the kind of facade you actually don't want to leave. You just want to stay here. Here's where I really got to keep my head on a swivel because it's kind of just back and forth. The building that we were in front of looks like that. Thanks, John Woods, for the support. He says, thanks for the lesson today, Corey. Oh, very welcome. Look at all the brick, am I right? There's tons of brick in this area. You would think, just in my mind's eye, the 17th arrondissement would be all traditional limestone, classical Parisian buildings. But in this area, I can tell you it's not. You can see a little bit of mosaic up there. And as well up above each window. And while we're zoomed in, let's look back across this way. Beautiful door. And this one, even though it's a bit modest up top, if we zoom in, we can see there's a flourish right along the top there, and mosaic, I believe. This is definitely worth getting a sore shoulder over. I'm not complaining one bit. Beautiful blue sky. Here, I don't think this is from the Belle Époque. It looks too modern, but it's still a great design. So here, let me first zoom in because these just caught my eye here. These beautiful door knockers. Thanks, Jay Palmer. Jay Palmer says, truly awesome today. Thank you. I share your love of Paris. That's what's so special about this, is that we all found each other and we can geek out on this stuff together. Why don't I stay zoomed in and I'll just scroll us up. Look at that little flourish at the top, that little capital at the top of the pillar there, the column. And then we've got the mascaron up top. If you haven't heard me say this before, those types of faces are called mascaron. It's a tradition that comes from Italy, and it traditionally was just a way to show that you were cultured as a homeowner, and they represented theatrical masks and the arts as a result. Thanks so much, Bonnie Turbeville. She says, thanks, Corey, such a great architecture class. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm tickled when you all use terms like class and lesson, because I never necessarily think of it in those terms, but if we can all learn a little something in the process, then that's a bonus. I almost decided to do this as an Always Look Up tour. Some of you might remember many episodes back I did a tour called Always Look Up, and I only pointed the camera up above my head the entire tour to prove that you always got to look up to find some of the best artistry. So as you can see, this episode could have been that. And we'll do another one of those types of tours soon for sure. Rachel says, Corey, I think of you as my Paris art professor. Wow, that's flattering. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dottie Brown. I appreciate the support. Everyone's so generous today. My goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. More brick. Just stunning. Wow. Like I said, this street has been described as an open-air museum. Clearly, you've got not just a lot of beautiful buildings, but a lot of different styles. Keep in mind, if you're a patron, a Patreon supporter, and you're in our Facebook group, I'm going to do another tour extension today by bike, and I'm going to bring you along with me as I ride my bike home. Today we're going to do it a little differently than we did last time, just so you can see some different parts of Paris. And I figure if I have a long bike ride home, I might as well share it as a bonus with my patrons. So keep in mind, we'll do that after this. And if you're not yet a patron, but you want to help support the cause and get some bonuses in the process, you'll find that link in the description, or at least I'll put it there after the fact when I get home. So now we get to a very eclectic building. This one is unlike anything that we've seen so far. And it's because it was the home of a rather famous actress during the Belle Époque. It wasn't Sarah Bernhardt. We'll talk about her a few houses down. But this was a lady by the name of Caroline Otero, or Caroline Otero. And she was a famous Belle Époque courtesan and dancer, performer. And she's known for having these romantic liaisons with kings and dukes and aristocrats. And this is a unique facade in that it uses turquoise tiling around the windows. So this was an actress's home, Madame Otero. And as luck would have it, the very next door address, number 29, was another well-known actress of the Belle Époque by the name of Geneviève Lantelme. So in most cases, a lot of these celebrities would make their fame and fortune at the height of their powers. They would have a home built here in the 17th, for example, and they'd move in. And that was the case with Sarah Bernhardt as well, and we're going to see part of where she used to live right around the same time. So you had three big-time actresses. I don't know if they were all on this street at the same exact time, but generally speaking, they all lived right here. I can feel the front coming in, almost like it's going to rain on us. More good corbels. We're getting our money's worth with corbels today. So this is part of Sarah Bernhardt's old place. So let me park the old steed. Thanks, Sandra Hendricks. I appreciate the support, lovely lady. Sorry, I'm trying to back up without tripping here. So we talked about Sarah Bernhardt in the previous part 1 of this and of this series. So go ahead and check that out if you're not familiar with this yet. But she was big during the Belle Époque, one of the first true celebrities ever. And so again, at the height of her success and her wealth, she ordered a mansion to be built here. Not just what you see here, but taking up this entire plot of land on the corner overlooking the boulevard, the avenue. So she had a huge mansion that was constructed all through here. This portion that we're looking at here that is still intact represented the part of her mansion that had her art studio. She was a really good sculptor. For example, there's a famous photo of her with some of her sculpture. And she had her winter garden at this address and whatnot. It was sort of like an annex to her lavish mansion. But then, like so many of these people, Sarah Bernhardt she fell deep into debt and she ran out of money and she had to sell off her property. So when another owner came in and he essentially decided to keep this portion of the mansion but redid it, and he sort of restored the facade to his own liking, but he kept some of the details, some of the original details. And why don't we go ahead and zoom in on those right now. You can hear my bike is still squeaking a little bit. Gotta get those brakes checked. So check this out here. Oh, yes. This looks old enough that it probably was original when Bernhardt lived here. Cat Williams has an incredible door knocker. I also want to point out, up top we've got a couple of rather classic looking gargoyles. Not from the Middle Ages or the Renaissance, but meant to look that way for sure. And then look at the gutter here. If we look at the top of the gutter where it starts there, it's quite unique. And then it's got this nice swirly pattern all the way down, but it culminates in another one of these. And this is pretty classic, one of those sort of fantastical sea creatures. What we've also got here is a bit of a curiosity because nobody knows exactly why it's here. But if we pan our way up here into the corner, you can see there are a couple of sculpted rats, even a hole, sort of a fake hole that the rats are getting ready to climb into. Nobody knows exactly why they're there. They think that it may be an architect's homage to the fact that when Sarah Bernhardt, the actress, lived here, she was known for having many odd and exotic animals as pets. So she was always surrounded by various animals from all around the world. And so maybe they might represent that, but sometimes they're referred to as Sarah's rats. So this is the last remaining part of her mansion back when times were good, and then they ended up not so good. And what are you going to do? You got to sell everything off. Every time I hear a story like that now, by the way, it reminds me of when we were at the Chateau de Monte Cristo and we talked about Alexandre Dumas and the fact that he built that beautiful chateau out in the countryside, and then very, very soon, in the blink of an eye, had to give it all up. Sorry for the squeaky brake. Look at this. So this is all on the same street. We're still on the Rue Fortuny. This was built in 1879 for a master glassmaker. And it's the one sad part about this building is that this right here, what used to be his original glass. And it was a way for him to showcase his work. And as you can see, it's not nearly as beautiful now. But the facade is still very much intact. A little bit of mosaic on the underside of that windowsill. Look at that. So imagine that with the original glass from this famous glassmaker. His name was Ponsin, Ponsin. And then if we even go further, I don't know how far I can zoom on this thing, but if we go way up, you've got the mascaron head, but then also, can you make out there's a painting of a portrait in the center of your screen? That portrait is not the owner, it's not the glassmaker, but it's an homage to a famous ceramicist by the name of Palissy, with a P. So you really gotta examine these facades top to bottom, because you'll never know what you find. Sometimes some of the best stuff is way at the top. That's a pretty fantastic shot. I could have used this for the thumbnail of the video. Maybe I'll come back and snap a photo of that. 1879, this one. And then we got one more beauty on this street, which, believe it or not, was one of the childhood hangouts of former French President Sarkozy, because his grandfather once had a home here and also a medical office. So Sarkozy apparently spent a lot of his time as a child hanging out here at his grandfather's place. As you can see, if you spend your childhood growing up in a building like this, maybe you are destined to become president of France. Thanks, Bob. Bob says, Corey, your knowledge and eye for detail is incredible. Thank you for this. The pleasure is mine, Bob. Thank you for coming along for the adventure. All we got to do is avoid a little bit of rain, and this will end up being quite a lovely episode. How are we doing on time? Ugh, we're an hour in. I think I'm going to call it there, folks. Maybe I'll finish with just a couple of quick things, because I don't want to run too long, and I do think the rain's going to come down on us at some point. So let me just give you the quick version. There's some loveliness over there. As you can see, roughly the same time period. We've got a double archway that leads into a courtyard. And that's just, I mean, what can you say? What can you say but formidable? I saw someone asked a while ago in the comments about a small museum, and it's here on the left. It's the Musée of Jean-Jacques Henner, right there. His name looks like Henner, Jean-Jacques Henner. We got a line of traffic to wait for here. Thanks, Daniel Moulden. She says, can definitely tell this one took a lot of time and research. Merci beaucoup. Oh, I appreciate that. Ah, this traffic is coming out of nowhere. All right. So we talked about where this Cyrano de Bergerac story was written. And then here, this, on the Rue Cardinet, number 58, we've got a big old plaque that reminds us that Debussy lived here while he created one of his famous operas. Composed one of his famous operas, I should say. You can see the name of it there in all caps. Pelléas et Mélisande, something like that. So there you go. It's not the fanciest building we've seen today, but the fact that, once again, in 1902, which is again right in the smack dab of the Belle Époque and the Art Nouveau period, Debussy was toiling away behind those windows working on his opera. Speaking of great artists, I'm going to show you where a studio was of the great painter Vuillard, where there were Bernhardt and Vuillard, some of my favorite early 20th century painters. And he had a studio in a beautiful building, and I'm going to try to get us there now. Ooh, the winds are picking up. This is a lycée on the left-hand side, a high school. The truth is we could ride around for another hour. All of these streets have good stuff. It's kind of hard to know when you should stop, when you should pack it in. This in front of us has sort of a funky name. If you can see on the corner there, it's called the Ecole Normale de Musique, or the Normal School of Music. But it's a prestigious music conservatory since the year 1919. And I've seen images from the inside of it, very beautiful classical rooms. But today we're just going to enjoy the outside balcony there. And then we've got another tree. We've got a cherry on the cake up there. Look at that. I think that would be a salamander, because that was a common motif that would come up quite often. So that's a music conservatory, oddly called the Ecole Normale, the normal school. I don't think there's anything normal about it, to be honest. All right. One last thing, folks. I know this one's running a little long. I hope not too many of you mind that. And we're going to finish with this beauty here. Look at this. Oh yeah, could have started with this one too. Let me park the steed, and I'll give you a proper camera angle. Yeah. So this is 112. The gate here, 112 of the Boulevard Malesherbes. And this gate would have led to a former studio of the painter Vuillard, who I adore. And his studio was here for years and years and years, for decades even. So he really liked this space. And he lived with his mother famously, just because they happened to have a very good relationship. And he didn't want to bother his mother bringing in models to paint and draw them, so he would bring his models here to his studio behind this gate of 112. He was either somewhere back there in 112 or perhaps even in this building, which would make the story even cooler, because this is a gorgeous hunk of architecture. Look at that. What a nice way to end this episode. So there you have it, folks, the Belle Époque of the 17th arrondissement, part 2. And I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly did. If you are a patron and you're in our Facebook group, give me about 5 minutes, pop over there in the Cafe Chats group, and I will take you along with me for my ride home. And we'll take a different route than we did last week, just so you can see a different part of the city. And should be nice as long as the rain holds off. So there you have it, folks. If you want to support me on Patreon, you'll find the link in the description, as well as my PayPal info if you want to support the cause that way, my merch store, etc., etc. Thanks so much for all the generous support and the donations and the enthusiasm, the appreciation, as usual. It all means a lot to me, folks. So enjoy yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.